All right, I'm going to show you the second part, overall review day 2. I think I'm going to break this up like I did with the first day where I do half the questions. So there's 24. I'll do 12 questions on the first video and the remaining 12 on the last. Okay, so I don't know how to get this out of here. I wonder if I could move this over here maybe. That would be a little quicker. Oh, it won't let me. Well, you get a picture of my family. Ooh, I think I can exit out. Perfect. Okay, so to evaluate 31, parenthesis 31 times 4, and then times it by 25, Milena rewrote the expression as 31 times 4 times 25. Which property lets her do that? Commutative. Commutative property means that you flip the terms. So did she flip? And flipping is usually aligned with two numbers. So like 3 plus 5 is equal to 5 plus 3. You just flip. Associative property means new numbers are hanging out. Your parentheses move to new numbers. New numbers are associating together. Order of operations means she would have figured something out. Identity property is something like this, like 3 times 1 equals 3, something like that. So did she flip? Did new numbers associate together? Did she calculate something? Or did it stay the same, like 3 times 1 is 3? And what happened? I had 31 and 4 hanging out together, and now 4 and 25 are hanging out together. And that is an associative property. That's something you're just going to have to memorize. You've been learning it since, I know for sure 6th grade does it. So 6th, I know 7th grade does that, and now 8th grade. So you just have to remember those words. Number 2, which expression has a value of 8 when x is 9 and y is 16? So what I'm going to do with these is I am going to plug them into my calculator and figure it out. So my x is going to go to all my x's, my y is going to go to all my y's, and I'm going to see which one gives me 8. So I have the square root of x plus the square root of y, take away 1. So second square root, again, is above the square. X is 9. You have to get out of the square root, plus the square root of, what's y, 16. Get out of the square root again. Take 1 away, hit enter. That's 6. That's not my 8. I'm going to move to B. The square root of x, x is 9. Get out of the square root, times the square root of y, which is 16. Get out of the square root, plus 1, enter. 13, not my 8. The next one is the absolute value of x minus y plus 1. So if you recall from, I think it was day 1 for review 1, questions 1 through 12, I showed you what the absolute value button was. It's in the math function, and it's part of numbers. So you would go absolute value, and you get your straight lines, x, 9, take away y, 16, and then I have to get out of the absolute value, add 1, and that's my 8. And that's what I wanted. I'm just going to double check that it's not this last one. So I hit the absolute value sign as part of numbers. And then I have negative x. I'm going to move this. What was my x? 9. Minus my y, which was 16. Get out of my absolute value. And then take x away. And my x was 9. And that's 16. So yeah, it's not my 8 that I wanted. So that's how you do that. Next, ooh, this one's a doozy. 2x minus 3 parenthesis 4 plus 3x is less than 9. I need to solve it, which means I need my variable all by itself. So what I'm going to do first is plus a negative and distribute. So I'm going to distribute to everything inside the parenthesis. The 2x is just along for the ride, so I'm just going to rewrite it in front. 2x plus negative 3 times 4 is a negative 12. I hope that looks good. Plus negative 3 times positive 3x is what? Negative 9. negative 9x, and then I have less than is less than 9. Okay? And then we combine like terms on the same side of the inequality. Negative 2x and a negative 9x would be negative 7. So negative 7x plus a negative 12 is less than 9. All right, now I'm going to move what's not sticking to it. So I'm going to minus a negative 12. So take away a negative 12, or you could just think of it like add 12. And you add 12 over, and I have that canceled out. Negative 7x is less than 21. Okay, and then I got to divide through by my negative 7. So if you recall way back in Unit 3, when you divide by a negative, you create a false statement. So I have to flip the inequality to maintain its truth. So then x is greater, because I had to flip it, than negative 3. So x is bigger than negative 3, which is my A. So good. That would be my A. Number 4. Which of the following is not an equation of a straight line? So that means which one is not in slope-intercept form? So f of x is 3, f of x is x plus 3, f of x is 3x, f of x is x cubed. What you could do with all these is just remember that a function is the same as y. So I'm going to go ahead and just graph them all and see which one's not straight. So f of x is 3. That would be y. Let me delete these. So y is 3. I'm going to graph it. That is definitely a straight line. Okay, so that's linear. Now I'm going to do f of x is x plus 3. Remember, function is the same as y. So it's going to be x plus 3. Oh, I always mess that up. You have to use this for your x. X plus 3, graph it. Another straight line, 3x. So let me go back, clear it, 3x, graph it. Another straight line, x cubed. Okay, go back to y equals, delete this, x to that's this button. You want to give it a boost to the top, 3, graph it. Oh yeah, that's definitely not a straight line. So that's my strategy there, is I graph them and identify the straight lines. Okay, number 5. Which of the following best describes the square root of 169? So I'm going to figure out what that is. The square root of 169, enter, is 13. It's between 12 and 13. It is 13. It's between 13 and 14. It is 14. So it is exactly 13. So it's just a one constant number. This is the best explanation. Moving on to number 6. What is the equation of the line that passes through Q? So that means I have to go through here and is perpendicular to MN. Remember, perpendicular means like it's a letter T, like it crosses at that 90-degree angle. So it needs to be the line that looks like this. So this one's kind of hard. It took me a long time to know x equals and y equals lines. You can't graph x equals. You just can't. You have to have a vertical line here, and when you graph on your calculator, it always is y or f of x. So I can't graph these two. So I'm going to graph y equals negative 3 and see if that is in that vertical position. Graph it. And y equals negative 3 would be a straight line down here. So that is not perpendicular. I'm going to try y equals 2. So y equals 2. I'm going to graph it. It's parallel. It goes like this. It's not. So it's one of my x equals. So x is negative 3 is right here. So that would be perpendicular, but it doesn't go through Q. So the one that goes through Q is the x equals 2. And again, my strategy there was to graph my y equals to see that those are actually horizontal lines And then I know my x's are vertical. Okay, Matthew figured out that in order to have enough money, H is greater than or equal to 6.5 represents how many hours he needs to work. Which of the following best describes his situation? So this means hours is greater than or equal to 6.5. Matt has to work more than 6.5. So that keyword more than means he can't work 6.5. So I don't think that's it because he can equal 6.5. Matthew has to work at least 6.5. That's a better one. At least means bigger than or the same. Matthew has to work no more than. No more than implies less than or equal, and he wants to work that many hours, so no. He has to work less than 6.5, definitely not. So B is our answer on this one. Number 8, which of the following is equal to -7 squared? So I'm pretty sure all your non-calculator questions are related to exponent properties and scientific notation, but I'm going to show you the non-calculator way first. You really would have to make a -1 come out times 7 squared. That's the actual way to do this. 7 squared is 49, and then you would go -1 times 49 would be -1, or just negative. What we taught you in 7th grade was drop down the neg. If it's in parentheses, if it was parentheses -7, parentheses squared, that would be where the negative travels with. So -7 times -7 would be a positive 49. So this one, it's a drop down, so it's 49, and then drop down the negative, so A. If you can do a calculator with this, all you'd have to do, let me clear this, you would just have to go -7 squared, and that will do the drop down for you. And if it has parentheses, make sure you put parentheses. -7 parentheses squared would be that positive 49. So that's the difference between those two. All right, I got to use a scatter plot to answer questions 9 through 11. Question number 9, which of the following statements best describes the data? So I'm just going to take a look. Number of minutes you study in your grade. So it looks like there's a positive correlation. The more you study, the higher your grade's going to be. Makes sense. Option 1, a line of best fit would not be useful. Well, I think it would be useful. They seem pretty close together, so I don't think that's a good one. Option B, the longer students study, the higher their grade. So that, yeah, because as kids are studying, their grade increases. You do have those random outliers where their grades start decreasing there, but I'm gonna star this one. So far, I think this is the best choice. The longer students studied, the lower their grade, that would be a negative slope. And this is definitely positive. So no, that one's definitely not it. The amount of time spent studying had no effect on grades. So no effect would be the no correlation. It's where the dots would be all over the place and you couldn't make a line of best fit. So that's not it. So B is our best bet. And you can type B in any way you want. All right. Number 10, Miss Johnson drew a line of best fit through points that and that. What is the expected gain in a student's score for each additional 10 minutes of studying? So I'm thinking this is slope because you're analyzing your rated change, the change of your grade for each time you study. That's a slope situation. So if you recall, when you find slope from 2 points, it tells you right here, slope of a line, second y, take away the first, over second x, take away the first. So my second y is 70. Take away my first y is 40. Over, let me do this, over my second x, 35. Take away my first x, 10. Okay, so that would be 30 over 25. Am I right? 30 over 35 minus 10 is 25. Okay, which is equivalent to what? Dividing both by 5 would be 6/5. Okay, so now I gotta analyze this here. Ms. Johnson drew a line of best fit through the points that and that. What's the expected gain in the student's score for each additional 10 minutes of studying? Going up to this graph. So she drew it through, I have to see her points again. 10, 40, and 35, 70. 10, 40, and 35, 70. So she drew her line like this. Then I want to know for each additional 10 minutes of studying, what will the change in grade be? So I'm going to use that 7th grade standard and figure out what the unit rate is. So that would be as what is to 10 minutes. And that'd be 60 divided by 5 is 12 points. So it should be 12 points for each additional 10 minutes of studying. And that's the expected though. I mean, there's going to be a point where it plateaus down. Okay, number 11. A student who was absent studied 45 minutes for the test. Which is the best estimate of what the teacher thought the student's score might be? So 45 minutes. I'm going back up to the graph. 45 minutes is right here. According to the line of best fit, because this is what the teacher made, so the teacher thinks kids are going to get this. So 45 minutes, the teacher thinks he's going to get like around 80, like in the 80 percentile. So I'm going to go back down. Between 75 and 85, above 90, no. Between 60 and 70, no. Below 60. So it was definitely in that 80% range. So we are going to say B is the best bet. All right, number 12. What is the equation of a line that passes through 4, 1, negative 1, and is parallel to the line that passes through negative 5, positive 1, and 1, 6? And I gave you a hint that you should write it in slope-intercept form with no spaces. So that's y equals mx plus b, and leave any fractions improper. Okay, so parallel means that your slope is the same. So I'm going to find the slope between these 2 points, and then that is the slope of my line that goes through this point. So slope is second y take away first over second x take away the first. So I'm just going to write s. My second y is 6. Take away my first y is 1 over my second x is 1. Take away my first x is negative 5. 6 minus 1 is 5. 1 minus a negative 5 is a plus. So 5, 6. This is going to get ugly. So good thing you can see how I use my parentheses with my calculator. Okay, now I have to make an equation that passes through 4, 1 and has that slope. If you recall, that is you're given a point and your slope. We are going to use point slope form. Y, take away the y they give you, is your slope parenthesis x minus the x they give you. So y, take away the y they give me, a negative 1, is equal to my slope, 5, 6, parenthesis, x, take away the x they give me, and they gave me 4. X, take away 4. Okay, so I'm going to multitask on this next step here. I'm going to turn this to a plus because it's minus a negative. That's plus, plus. And I'm going to start distributing. Why don't I go ahead and write plus a negative here? Okay, so y plus 1 equals, and then I don't really need to use my calculator for 5, 6 times x because 5, 6 times x is just 5, 6 x. But I am going to use my calculator for this one. Plus 5, 6 times the negative 4. Let me show you how to type that in. So you would just go, any fraction, you always use it as a parenthesis. So 5/6, parenthesis, and then what am I doing? Timesing by -4. So times -4, enter. And I get this random decimal. As 8th graders, we don't want that. So I'm going to tell it to slide it to a fraction. So math, slide to fraction, enter, enter again, -10/3. So plus a -10/3. Even though this doesn't look nice, since you're able to use your calculator, it's not that big of a deal. So now I got to move my 1 over, so subtract 1 to both sides. And we have -10/3 take away 1. So let's say you didn't have that in there. You could just say parenthesis -10/3 take away 1. And you would get -4.3 repeating. So you would click that to its fraction, slide it to a fraction, and you get -13/3. So final answer, that would cancel out. You'd get y equals 5/6x. Let me just type it. Y equals 5/6x plus -13/3. And then we can get rid of the plus sign. So it's just -13/3. Okay, so that's the first set. I think the second set I'm gonna do for you on a different video. We have, well, how many left? 12 left, because I just did 1 through 12. So I'm going to end this video and we will do the other one on the other video.